All right. This meeting is being live streamed.
Nice. We're live.
Excellent.
Phew, I don't see
All
them.
right. Welcome to the live stream, everyone. We're happy to be here. Let's bring up the chat window.
Yeah.
This is the dashboard. There's the chat.
Yeah, we're all
Welcome. There we go. Okay. There's my setup. All right, man. Good morning. Good evening, Bob. How's it going?
Good morning. Good evening. Yeah, well, long day. But excited to do the AMA. Hello, Sherry. Welcome.
Hey, Sherry.
Sherry's in the house. And that's your early morning, right?
Yeah, that's right. 6:30 in the morning over here. I know it's 10:30 at night for you. So I appreciate you staying up late for this.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, everyone, welcome. This is our second Ask Me Anything session, where we're good morning, Australia, where we're hoping to just sit here and have a casual chat with everyone, have a listen to what you all have to say and ask, and so on and so forth, and answer any questions you might have on Python, on PyBites, on all that sort of stuff, and especially on ourselves as humans. No gin this time, thanks, Reese. No, it's too early in the morning for gin.
How's it going about water?
Yeah, I found last night when I was recording the podcast that if I drank my water in a special way, it looks like I've got a mustache, a blue one. There you go.
Yeah. Welcome, Reese.
So yeah, everyone pop it in the. So Reese, thank you for the first question of the session. No gin this time. So I appreciate that. If you're tuning in for the first time, you've never met PyBites before, you don't know who we are. I'm Julian. I'm based here in Australia. I'm one of the half owners of PyBites or creators of PyBites. And who are you?
I'm the other half. I'm Bob. I'm based in Spain.
Perfect.
When did we start?
Yeah.
2016. Sorry? When did we
start? 2016.
6.5 years.
So it's been almost 7 years for PyBites, which we're pretty excited about. Lots of stuff happened in the meantime. Now I have a question that, let me just bring up our community Slack, because people were asking questions through that last time as well. Now I had a question that was submitted in advance, and I don't normally talk about this stuff, but screw it, I'll answer it. Someone was asking me, about my day job. They were asking me, what do you do for work? Because they know. There you go. Hey, Juana. Hey,
hola.
Nice to see you.
Buenas.
Yeah, someone was asking me, what do you do for a day job? Because they know that I'm not working full time on PyBites just yet. And so they wanted to know, what do you do? So at the moment, I work at Amazon Web Services during the day. And I'm now a learning and development specialist. So my role is to train leadership teams internally on all sorts of things, but mainly things like leadership skills, communication, culture, things to do with the employee experience, and trying to figure out, what those needs are. So half of the job is figuring out what needs to be trained and then actually delivering the training. So that's what I do for a day job. But nice. One day it will be doing what the legend here, Bob, does every day, which is work on PyBites full time. So that's where we're going.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And that will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Anthony.
Oh, there we go.
Welcome.
Thank you for the live stream. You're welcome. Yeah. If you have any questions, throw it in the chat. Happy to answer anything.
That's what we're
just
here for.
Don't ask me what my credit card number is. That I won't tell you. All right, Bob. All right. Here's one for you.
Here we go. Okay, so ChatGPT. I'm new to it. Any advice on how I get started? Hey, Hugh. Yeah, that's a great question, because we did a podcast. Julian here interviewed me how I use it. I would suggest just start using it, right? It's really like a learn by doing thing. So it's basically a chatbot, right? So you have a conversation and start asking it questions. And I will recommend a cool training they did, a deep learning AI, prompt engineering. It's an hour training, I think by Andrew NG. And it teaches you a bit more about prompt engineering. But I think the entry barrier is pretty low. Literally just type something in the chat, right? The art is though, like over time to start to detect when it hallucinates and to bring your own increasing experience to the table and vet what the tool says, right? And of course, don't put any internal stuff in there. So you will get better at it paired with your Python experience. But yeah, you should just start using it. We're using it every day, not only for coding, for research. It's a super powerful tool. And as we mentioned in the podcast, right, as it keeps state in your conversations, it's way more powerful than Google in a sense, where you do like one-time queries. So yeah, use it. Does that help, Sherry? Do you want more specifics?
Mostly for research. One thing I'll add in there, Bob, is that when you start with ChatGPT, it's really, really easy to do the Google search stuff that you were just mentioning. That it's so easy to say, what's the answer to X, or how do I do Y? You know, and that's really not using it to its greatest ability. So just remember that it's a conversation. This would be the equivalent of having a chat with someone in person, as if you actually had a mentor or human standing in front of you, and you can say things like, hey, as per our last chat, or give it context. And that's my favorite part, is you can say, hey, on this same line of questioning, can you tell me why I would do this over that? And so you can actually have a little bit of reasoning in there as well, which is pretty exciting and scary at the same time, but cool.
Yeah, but embrace those tools. It's changing the game.
Yep.
Right.
So thanks, Sherry. All right, Bob, this next one's for you. I'm from Anthony. Thank you, Anthony.
I'm a beginner with Python. I would like to request if you could please discuss how the data structures like dict set are implemented in Python by the hood, in the source code, I guess. Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have the full answer, but I can take a stab at it. So definitely like the built-in data structures, a lot of them are implemented in C. So you would actually have to go to the C Python source. And that's for efficiency. I'm more at a level where I understand when to use a certain data structure. And I think, especially as a beginner, that's also more important to know. So for a list, that's great to keep a collection of items, right? Where you just append to a set of items. But if you do lookups, especially on bigger data sets, then you definitely want to use a dict or a set, because it implements hashing. So lookups are super fast, right? Now, if you're going to delete or move items randomly in a list, then a list might also not be the best, because then you have a DAG from the collections module. So those are just some quick examples off the top of my head, where it becomes kind of important to know when to pick the right data structure. But I'm overall not too really keen on knowing how they're implemented. But I will say that a lot is actually in the C Python code. And if you really want to go deep, then there's that book by Anthony Shaw about the C Python. What was the title?
C Python internals, is that the one?
Yeah, so you can really, if you want to learn about that, then I recommend that book. But yeah, day to day, I'm more keen on when to use the right data structure and how. Does that help? Let me know if you have follow-up questions.
Nice. Good answer. Interesting. Like obviously that's not something I know off the top of my head. Honest observation from that is that was not a beginner question for me. So if I was a beginner learning Python, that is not something I would ever have thought to ask. So Anthony, I'm totally curious where that question even comes from. It's a good question to ask. But as a beginner with Python, where does that come from? So I sort of needed to get an idea of this so that I can know the complexity part when I use them in my code. I'm not that good with going over source code and figuring it out yet. Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right, so second question now, another question is from Reese. Have you played with Mojo yet? Thoughts? Go on, Bob.
I have not, to be honest.
I have not.
I have that on my to-do list. So I cannot say anything about that yet.
Okay. No, that's cool. Link us up, Reese. Let
Yeah.
us know what resource you have on Mojo. We'd like to see it.
I'm sure we're people are looking into that in PDM though, so we can have an answer on that fairly soon. Yeah.
Okay, Anthony Lister. Thank you, Anthony. And another one. What's your favorite Python version and why? Go on, Bob. You go first on this one.
3.12. Oh, that's not out yet, right? 3.11, the latest and greatest. So I mean, since 3.8, it's just all awesome, right? I mean, 3.7 we had data classes. 3.8, I mean, the type hinting stuff is getting much better. Syntactically, starting 3.9. But I would say like most of the amazing stuff is definitely starting 3.8, and then with 3.10 you have the structural pattern matching stuff, which I haven't really heavily used. But one thing to highlight is starting 3.10 or even 3.11, the performance got also much better, right? So yeah, the latest and greatest it is, and the performance stuff is really exciting. So
cool. For me, it's 3.6. I think that was where, is it 3.6 where F strings?
F strings, you're still hooked to the F strings. But
Still
yeah,
hooked to
3.11
F
keeps having that, you know.
To me, it was just magic. I just remembered no longer having to the long string style, right? With the percentage replacement operators, whatever you call them.
My favorite is 2.6. Isn't that when context managers came out?
Yeah.
But yeah, Python 2, yeah. Not anymore. Rest in peace, Python 2.
It's gone. It's gone. Don't need it. But I really liked it. Just for that, I think that was just a huge leap to me, a logical leap. So that made
3.6 you were missing out on data classes.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so the next, a comment from Anthony J just on that question about how data structures work. As a beginner, when I've started LeetCode, there are easy and medium questions with multiple solutions. To compare these solutions, we sort of have to have an idea about data structures and their complexity.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Thanks for that context.
Totally. Yeah.
I will challenge something, Anthony, which is purely that start thinking about your goals, what it is you want to achieve with Python. It's very easy to sit there and code with LeetCode and even our coding platform. I'm not going to shy away from that. You should be starting to, if you haven't already, start focusing on projects, start actually building something with Python to put those skills that you're starting to pick up through LeetCode to good use. That's how you'll learn all of those pieces that you're after. So
yeah, maybe you can link to ADM training in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anthony Lister, I think you got in just before Juanjo. How old is your youngest PyBites black belt? I have no idea. We don't collect ages.
Yeah, we don't have ages, but there must be some younger black belts for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just average it out. I'll say like 30.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Right. Well, interesting though. We know though who the students are on the platform, so we could look at how far these students have come and if there's any black belt in that population. So that would be interesting.
We could look at the schools that are using the platform and then see if any of those kids have gotten to black belt. And if they have, then we'll estimate, 15.
Yeah.
That
they use the platform pretty young age. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Anthony, if that was a question to trip us up. Let's see what data are they collecting.
That was a good one.
All right. Thanks, man. Juanjo, what do you use to lay out the code for a project? I.e., do you use Mind Me Up or similar tools? Do you mean like to have a mind map before you do the project, or?
Yeah, because if you talk about layout of the code, I would also think about project structure and stuff. But then if
Mm.
you say mind me up, then it's more like mind mapping. So
Yeah.
yeah, please clarify. If it's mind mapping, I've used Xmind,
Yeah.
and there was another one clients use often, but I forgot the name. Do you remember?
There is mind map.
Yeah, that
I've
was the
seen
one
that
from a
one.
training, but that's
That's what
a bit,
Hughes mentioned.
yeah. There's another.
Um,
We'll get it.
yeah,
Oh,
to
to
see
see
the
the
big
big picture before you
you
start. Yeah,
start.
that's definitely mind mapping, right?
Yeah.
You
So
wanna tell them how we did that with CMS. We did.
yeah. We did it. We did a little bit.
We
Yeah.
ate
So
our own dog food.
for both of us, what we tend to do, if it's going to be like something in depth that needs a little bit of planning, like if you're going to have APIs and databases and all that sort of stuff, yeah, we'll always map it out with Xmind. And it's just, the equivalent of grabbing a piece of paper with someone sitting at a desk or drawing it up on a whiteboard, and then we'll just sit there and put down the different moving pieces for the application. Just on there, and
Yeah, what
essentially
are the
show
components? How are they
where does the data
related?
flow.
And what are the priorities in implementing? Yeah.
Mm.
And then we go agile with the issues and stuff on repos. We do that a lot lately as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up. That you also put the priority in there. It's not just what are the moving pieces, what technology are you going to use for each feature, but also what's the priority. Because and this links into the project work that we were just mentioning with Anthony J here, is that if you look at your project all at once, it can be really, really intimidating to even get started, because there's so many pieces to building an application. And especially if you've got an idea that you're passionate about, you can still be daunted to even start. So always prioritize what's the MVP, what's something that needs to be done first, so you can have that minimal viable product, and then and then build on from there.
Yeah, that's our approach since quite a while. But one of the coaches also added a really interesting question. Look at what the ideal experience is from the end user perspective. And I found that pretty interesting as well. Like how do you want that end user to interact with your software? That kind of puts it in a different light. So
Yep. So there you go, Juanjo. Thanks. I used it in PDM. Found it a really great tool, even for small projects. At least for me, it helps to stick to the MVP, as long as you don't make the mind map too big. Yeah, I made a mind map of our business of PyBites, and it was gigantic, and it
couldn't fit on one screen, right?
It couldn't fit on one screen. So that was a lesson not to go too much detail.
Had to go to 37% to fit it.
Exactly. Okay, what else do we have here? So from Anthony J, thank you. That's good advice coming from an engineering background. I sort of want to work on some mathematical computation related Python code and script instead of web scraping, Pygames, etc. Can you please share some project ideas that I could look into with this regard? Do you have any ideas, Bob?
Not off the top of my head. Mathematical computation.
Yeah, not from that.
That's not what I typically do, but maybe that would be a great question to ask on our Slack, where we have 3,000 plus Pythonistas. So I will also add that link into the chat right now.
Yeah. So Anthony, if you're not in that Slack, pop in there and ask the question. We got people from all sorts of different walks of life in there that would be a better place to answer that. If you have an engineering background and experience in that space, give it some thought as well. What is it that floats your boat? What's something that gets you excited in that space that you could code that might even lead to that sort of project and start working from there? We always encourage people to think about what excites them rather than just taking a sort of canned project idea that someone tells them they should do, because then when it gets tough and you're struggling with the code and you're trying to figure out what to do next and you're whacking your head against the wall because you don't understand, that's when you'll push through, when it's something that you actually care about, as opposed to what someone tells you to do. And that's why in our coaching program, we don't have canned projects that we give to people, because then they don't stick the 12 weeks of the program.
Yeah.
to get it done.
Maybe the portfolio assessment would help here.
Mm,
Yeah. I can paste that as well.
cool. Yeah, no worries. Hey, Jarvis, welcome.
Hey, Jarvis. Nice you joined.
Yeah, a bit late to join the party. What was the most fulfilling moment for you guys personally in your Python coding journey? All
Nice. You want to go first?
right, you go, Bob.
Ah, you go, man.
I was
Hi.
just talking.
Okay. You need some time to think about it. No.
And a drink.
Wow. Just one?
Hmm.
I think for me, it breaks down into coding and people. So to me, coding these big automation tools and sitting at yesterday I gave the PyBites example, but now I'll give the company example. I was sitting at the company and my first big Python project, right? And I saw like 5 engineers sitting side by side, all using that same web interface I just built, and them just being happy because every time they used the tool, they saved 20 or 30 minutes of work. That was like, yes, I built that, and that was just enormously satisfying. But yeah, lately the human side, the people is getting those results for people we coach. So that's also just very, very fulfilling.
Yeah,
What
that's
about
a
you?
good point. 1 second, I'm just typing in the chat here. I'm ignoring you for a second. So I'll answer in a second, but Anthony I'll mention that in a sec. So I don't know. There's this mix, right? There's the personal side and there's the PyBites side, because PyBites is very strongly linked to our Python journey. So I don't know. I'm struggling to come up with one answer, but I think personally, it was proving that I had the skills to be a software developer, and getting the job as a software developer. That was probably one of the most satisfying or fulfilling moments for me in the Python scene, I guess. That was one, but the other one, and this one's kind of funny. I don't know if some of you, I don't know if anyone on this call was there, but our first PyCon, Bob and I going to that, it was like being at the heart of Python in a way. So if you haven't been to a PyCon before, try and get there. The US one is what I'm talking about. And we were able to be there, and it was our first one, wasn't it? It wasn't just the first time we went to PyCon, it was the first time you and I met in person.
That's yeah.
But we also had a poster that we presented at the poster session at PyCon. So it was stuck up there on this board. And for the first time, we were in person in front of people, strangers walking up to us, showing an interest in what we were doing. And that was one of the most fulfilling moments, I think, being able to just talk about our excitement and passion for coding and challenges and exercises. So
Yeah,
there
I'm
you go.
Googling if this poster is still online. Yeah, I found it. I'll link it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because as we started this blog, we have blogged everything.
So we got it all there.
If you blog it, it's on the internet forever, right? Which is also good.
Hey, actually, I'm gonna throw something else in there, Jarvis. You've opened the box on this one. Just a few weeks ago, someone mentioned that that ChatGPT responded to them asking about learning Python with go and check out PyBites. So there you go.
We made it. The AI has recognized this. Yeah.
As soon as I said that, I was like, it said
could be bias. Could be bias.
Yeah, I'm sure they said, how do I learn Python with PyBites? The first thing I asked them was, what did you...
People have deliberately scripted to feed AI PyBites constantly. So the model's now skewed.
yeah, the model's skewed. I asked them, I said, what did you actually ask it? What was the prompt you put in to get it to say, PyBites? So it was pretty cool. It was organic from their part because they'd never interacted with us before. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. All right. So a question. Thank you for that, Jarvis. Appreciate it. question from Anthony Lister. What's your favorite program developed through PDM, through the PDM program, the coaching program? And would you consider making a gallery portfolio so we can all see what people develop there with you? So quick answer to the latter part of the question. We do have a gallery. So I've put that in the chat.
Well, you put the
it doesn't-
PDM link, right? So you would have to scroll down,
Yeah.
right, to the project
Yeah,
section.
you have to scroll down to the project section.
And then it's on a separate page.
And then we also have a separate page that has a lot more, where you can click on check out more projects.
Yeah.
Did you link it, Bob?
Yeah, I can link that now. Yeah.
I've got it. It's all right.
Okay.
There you go. So that projects page, the second link has a lot more of them. Not all of them, but just the ones that we, have permission from people to share. And
yeah, some people do also some internal stuff, right? So
yeah. So, a fair few people code things, for the companies, for their own businesses, and they don't really want to share some of that proprietary information. So, but I don't know. What's your favorite program, Bob? Can you think of anything?
I'm scrolling
really
through
tough.
it now, and it's really hard. But I don't know, man. It's I mean, personally, I like the ones that became businesses or startups. That's really exciting to me because that really shows what a project can grow into, right? So you have the payroll app or quietlinks.com that's getting a lot of traffic. But yeah, they're all really cool projects because there's open source there, an ISSF scraper, so helping an athlete coach. There's a PyTest TUI plugin, so something entirely different. There's APIs, so yeah, that's But I think that for me personally, the startup kind of grow into startup kind of projects are my favorites.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. It's a really tough question to answer because we get to know all of these people individually, and when you hear their motivations for building these applications, you engage with them in a different way. It's not always just purely about what does it do and the coolest thing behind it. So a couple of my favorites, you can see on that projects page, the second one down is the philanthropic finder. I hope I said that right. But it's about finding charities based on various criteria. So I really love that idea. And because so many people come to PDM wanting to give back to the world in some way, building to give back. Then on the flip side, one of the guys created an app to give a front end to a Dragon Quest database, and that introduced me to the game Dragon Quest and put me on a downhill spiral of losing productivity to look into the game, but I love that because I'd envisioned things like that with Pokemon and other things as I was starting to learn Python. And then the last one, which I really loved as well, was that data quilt application, which I think it's on that page somewhere, that Heather made, which allowed you to take weather data from within the US for a postal code, a historical weather data for a year of your choice. And then it took that data from the weather API, whatever the place is in America, and then gives you a visual representation of the temperatures for that year or for that month, whatever the granularity is there. And then you can take that and quilt it. So if you are into quilting, like the actual knitting, sewing type activity of making a quilt, you can take this design that this app spits out and it tells you how to turn that into a physical quilt that you can give people. Like, it's those sorts of cool, ingenious things that just really excites me about this, because that's the sort of stuff I love with Python, just connecting different data sources and doing fun stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, awesome. So one
last question, then we got to drop to respect everyone's time. Juanjo, have you had a moment where you thought you couldn't finish the app? How do you keep the motivation? All right, you go, Bob.
Wow. Well, definitely times with the platform where it got very complex, getting that all working with AWS Lambda. But also in my last developer job, there were features that were super complex, having to integrate that into a code base of 10, 20 years, whatever it was, and super complex. So you can really hit these roadblocks, and you get some imposter syndrome. How do you keep up the motivation? Yeah, that's a good question. We really have to plow through it. Talk with colleagues, talk with Julian. Mindset, that's an extra plus. Yeah, and I think yesterday we touched upon the success wall and the wins and stuff. Celebrate those small victories in the process. That helps a lot as well. Because that when you read that back, you get a reminder like, hey, I'm capable of doing this, right? But yeah, some projects can feel like War and Peace, right? 1,500 pages, you never get through it. So
yeah.
Motivation is mindset. So I'm wondering on your thoughts there.
Yeah,
because
so
you have had that as well, right? Like where you're like, oh my god, like what is this?
Yeah, I remember one of the hardest projects I was building was through work, through the job. And one thing they never tell you when you get a software job is that you spend like a quarter of your time actually writing code and the rest of the time navigating the ecosystem of that company. So depending on the company that you're doing it in, you have to learn all the different pieces of how do code reviews work, how does approvals work, how does, you name it, how does the data pipeline and all of those things work, and trying to navigate the security and all of those things. It was really doing my my head in. I was struggling sanity-wise because my app worked locally, but to get it deployed internally was an absolute mission. And the motivation was purely just, for me, was one, funnily enough, a bit of pride. I need to get this out. I want to have something under my belt. Two, it was also speaking with the end customer. When you have a customer in mind for that application, they can help give you motivation and keep you focused. And at the end of the day, it's just, it's what you tell yourself, right? You just have to amp yourself up and say, look, I can do this. Do that whole diffused mind thing we mentioned last time as well. Walk away, disappear, realize that it's not you, that you can do anything that you actually want to do. So just walk away and come back, and you'll get there, and then reflect back on where you came, right? Where you came from. So when you're at a certain point in the app, look back and you'll see just how much you actually have built, and then you can build on some motivation from there.
But what about the stories you tell yourself?
Did anyone see that eye roll?
Yeah, I did.
Is it?
Hurt me inside, bro. Thank you. Julian does not have imposter stories inside his head.
It's what you tell
now.
yourself. Just, we'll edit that out. I'll just blink for a really long time instead of
that was his blunt response. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, it's what you tell yourself. It's that matters.
No, but seriously, there's a bit of fake it before you make it, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. All right. So we're at 3 minutes past. We're gonna drop it there. Jarvis and Hugh are laughing.
Going to be hilarious otherwise. Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you all so much for joining in for the questions.
And great questions. Yeah.
And
awesome.
If you're curious about anything more, please feel free to hit us up on the PyBites Slack. Shoot us through an email.
I think joining the Slack is a good way to keep connected, because we want to do more of these sessions, right? And probably also more specifically around topics. So I think we should start a conversation like, well, A, do you want more of these? And B, what should they be about? So
yeah. So definitely Jarvis.
the guitar solo.
The guitar
that would
solo.
Be a nice ending. Okay.
That was a positive win for me, thanks to one of the people in PDM, James. I actually picked it up again, and I've been practicing for the past 2 weeks every day for 10 to 30 minutes. And so building up that habit again, and it feels good. Finger dexterity is getting back. I'm enjoying it. So
that's awesome.
Maybe one day, Jarvis, you never know. And Larry, thank you for that comment. We should continue the conversation on these things with Anthony J in the community Slack. So make sure you'll hop in there if you're not already in there. All right, beautiful. Thanks, everyone. We will be back. We might do another one of these if you're keen in another month. Otherwise, take care. Enjoy your weekend. It's coming up soon. It's Thursday over here. It's practically the weekend. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.